Right now, the general permit under which most swine operations are authorized to manage their waste and conduct their business requires no monitoring whatsoever of groundwater quality and impacts, no monitoring whatsoever of air quality or its impacts, and only after a self-reported spill is any monitoring of surface waters required. And one thing I think it's important to note is that this new general permit that the law now requires DEQ to create to authorize biogas production is likely to be constructed on that shaky foundation. And what's problematic is not only will biogas operations entrench the use of this harmful lagoon and spray field system, but it can actually exacerbate some of the long known and well documented harms that are imposed on surrounding communities. For instance, by concentrating the nitrogen content in that still land applied effluent, the risk to groundwater quality when the waste reaches the aquifer is increased. So it is natural to argue that monitoring should be required to assess the nature and extent of those impacts. Similarly, the impacts to surface water will also be exacerbated because of that concentration in the waste stream. So one would argue, and we will argue, that monitoring should be required so that those impacts can be documented and so decisions can be made about how to mitigate and prevent that harm on surrounding environments. In Idaho, a similar permit for CAFOs was in part invalidated recently by federal courts because of the unchecked assumption that discharge was not occurring where it was prohibited. And so that's, I think, a common sense response when we know that there have been adverse impacts on water quality adjacent to and downstream of these facilities. And we know that did not predate their operation and has worsened as they have concentrated and continued to manage waste in this way. One of the key questions is why the state is not taking a harder look at whether or not that non-discharge requirement is actually being met.